Content warning. Death, drowning, suicide. This video contains spoilers for the game Like Gulls Crying at the Dawn. When a story focuses on suffering or sadness, there's an expectation that it will be handled with care, even if the ending is bleak. Unfortunately, Like Gulls Crying at the Dawn's attempt results in a shallow experience. You play as someone in a lighthouse, where outside they find a message in a bottle. The writer had abandoned a ship that sunk at sea, leaving behind the rest of the crew to drown. He is alone on a raft drifting towards the lighthouse. Each day another message arrives, learning more about his increasing guilt over his actions. He speaks of redemption, of fear, of longing. Every day after the first starts you outside the lighthouse, ready to get the next bottle. Different times of day, different weather, centered on when that message arrives. The messages reveal the writer has a dependence on the person reading the messages, that they can save him, but in reality it's the other way around. He doesn't know the person in the lighthouse has these messages, that they even exist, but they know he exists. You await his arrival, so those words can materialize into the person that wrote them, and maybe that connection as well, alone at that lighthouse. That arrival never comes. The writer's raft arrives without him in it. He drowned himself as a way to join those he abandoned, and asks for the reader of the messages to join him as well. He's here to save them. The person in the lighthouse gets on the raft. The ending feels abrupt. You never see the writer, or even interact with him. You only read and judge him however you feel. The messages evoke feelings of connection, but it's merely voyeurism. You read to see what he'll say next, how his sad story will turn out. And then those expectations of a conclusion are denied. He's at the bottom of the sea. The ending is ambiguous outside of the person in the lighthouse getting on the raft. Of the two endings I considered, I realized either way is pretty cynical. The person in the lighthouse either joins the writer in the depths, or they leave having been redeemed themselves, gaining the courage to find a real connection. If they join the writer, it's ultimately a tragedy, but began as a voyeur watching one suffer only to realize their own isolation, leading to their suicide as an attempt to save an imaginary connection. If they go off on their own, the voyeur's exploitation has been completed. They learn from the writer's suffering to go find real connections, leaving him behind at the bottom of the sea. While it's ultimately up to the player what the person in the lighthouse did in the end, it doesn't change my criticism of the game. Anyway, the entire thrust of the game is constructed around the display of suffering for the sake of it. This is felt in the game's use of distance. The writer is never shown, represented only by the raft at the end of each day, slowly nearing the lighthouse. Here we are placed in the position of the vast oceans taking up the majority of the scene, indifferent to the events above. When in control of the person in the lighthouse, we read the writer's messages, again at a distance from him. The focus is pinpointed on his pain, but never himself. These characters have no existence outside of the tragedy. The writer's grief leading to suicide is used as a shortcut to pity and the sense of inevitability to it all, a way to sidestep the fact that he has no past, and thus no future. He's in a state of suspended death, finally enacted when there's nothing left to get out of it. The person in the lighthouse has no interiority, and thus we are denied the possibility of being present with them. It seems like a concession in order for the character to be a blank slate to project onto, but fails in this respect as their continual reading of the messages and their decision to get on the raft suggests intention outside of our own. Like Gulls Crying at the Dawn is described as a poem, but its language and attempts at playing with form are too stiff and literal to inspire anything within me. The descriptions of the ocean are accompanied with a wave effect. Time is made concrete, the messages said to be arriving daily. Those the writer abandoned are referred to with a capitalized they, colored differently from the rest of the text in addition to those associated with them. All those who in the writer's perspective would deny him redemption, like gulls or evils. A repetition is created through the structure of the day, in opening each message with a variation on the sentence, "I write to you in hopes of being saved." a return to the site of trauma, fated to reproduce itself with no chance of escape, not even contemplation. Its subversion in the final message opens with, "I write to you again in hopes of saving you," suggesting an opportunity for mutuality. But the "you" shakes to make sure you know how irrational he is at this point. Rendered into a spectacle, he offers nothing more than to be a container for our pity. The game constrains itself at every turn, possibilities denied in its rigidness. Like gulls crying at the dawn mistakes the display of misery alone as empathy. It wants to talk about topics like loneliness, regret, and suicide, but the game can't move past the question, isn't loneliness, regret, and suicide sad? It wants to highlight the humanity of its characters, but only presents isolated pain at a distance. Here, relating to one another is gazing at the spectacle of it, as long as your answer to the question is yes. How pitiful. How sad. In the end, the game's decision to gawk rather than be present makes it too condescending to make me feel anything it intended. Not even the song in the background, which actually hits that space between sad and uplifting, could convince me the trauma on display was meaningful. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting me on Patreon or Ko-fi. Patreon is if you want to support me monthly, and Ko-fi is for one-time support. These videos wouldn't be possible without the generous support of my patrons and Ko-fis. Any amount helps this channel keep going. Anyways, here's my Twitter, my Instagram, my channel link if you want to subscribe, and some other videos I made. Well, that's all I had to say. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you around.